Welcome to this brief presentation on Charism. It comes to you from ROE, the Organisation for Religious Orders in Education. The presentation will explore the idea of charism as one of the ways in which religious order schools organise and shape their ethos. The aim is to help participants to understand how the idea of charism interacts with and balances against the organisational objectives of a Catholic school. The word charism goes back to Greek antiquity, to the goddess Aphrodite, who was a well-known party animal with a roving eye, and it's linked with the Roman goddess Venus. But Aphrodite also had a trio of party organisers, maidens called Splendour, Good Cheer, and Festivity. So far, so good. They were known as the charisms, or the graces. And when you see those in art, they're always depicted in a threefold embrace or in a dance depicting the energy and flow of life between people. In time, that word charism came to mean a gift, freely given and graciously received, and it is captured in Matthew's Gospel by phrases like, "You received without charge, give without charge." So you can already see that the charism is not a gift like a box of chocolates, something to be kept. It is a gift that moves out from generosity and a gift that moves the receiver to a similar generosity. Charism is a flow of goodness that is rooted in the spirit that inspires all creation, all community, and all people. The Church linked the notion of charism with the experience of Pentecost, when the Spirit was freely given to the early Church, dividing and resting as flames of energy over each person. The impact of that charism led to the early Church going out full of energy to proclaim and live a gospel of community focused on serving the poor. Saint Irenaeus, reflecting on that experience, defined charism as inspired by love, meaning that it benefits the whole community. So what can we say about charism? What are its characteristics? We can say that it is a free gift. It's given by God to an individual for the support of a wider community, which can be overwhelmed by hierarchies and can tend to retreat into the background. You can see the last point in the way that charismatic energy seemed to fade from the awareness of the Church as it became more organised and as it enjoyed the support of the structures of the Roman Empire under Constantine. The experience of charism, of a generous outgoing flow of energy, found a focus in the earliest forms of religious life, as people chose a simpler way of following the gospel in the desert. It was there, in religious life, that this experiential energy of charism found a home. There also seems to be a tension between that kind of energy and the more organised aspects of life in church, between charism and order. That same tension will undoubtedly be reflected in school life, between the demands of education today and the self-sacrificing spirit that makes all education effective. You can trace the rise and the fall of charismatic energy in the Church through the rise and fall of mystics like Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Francis of Assisi, Hildegard of Bingen, Thomas Merton, Meister Eckhart. They all tend to cluster around different ages as the more ordered church begins to struggle. So these moments when organised religion seems to lose its way create opportunities for charism to emerge from the background and to respond creatively to a changing culture. So charism is linked to a deeper sense of an individual inner call, a vocation, and to a new way of seeing God in a confusing climate of change, and also to a deep desire to renew the Church within that world of change. That all sounds wonderful and positive, but a charism is often perceived as a little bit wild and dangerous, so much so that some of the charismatic founders of religious orders were actually thrown out of their own order. It was the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution that triggered the most recent flowerings of charism in religious orders. Look at the dates of the foundations of these educational orders. They are emerging as a direct response to changes in culture, to refresh the church and the culture in rapid change. Thinkers about religious life and charism recognize that the energy curve around the charism eventually begins to decline, and from its peak, it lasts about 100 years. So the whole cycle lasts about 200 years. After that, the charism must adapt or it must die. Researchers estimate that in these energy dips, 75% of religious orders and their charisms disappear, often in a spectacular decline. You may have noticed that in the present energy cycle, our 200 plus years is coming to an end, and change or die is the stark choice for the charism at this present moment. Roe is one of the groups that are exploring how this change might happen and how charism can be embraced by a wider world of education as an intentional choice. So far, charisms have always found a natural home in religious congregations, but since Vatican II and the awakening of a skilled laity, perhaps there are new possibilities. A charism breaks into life through an individual, a founder, who lives out a new pattern that joins the inner and the outer world. Sometimes it's unwelcome, disruptive, and yet it's attractive and it's innovative. It does not belong to the status quo. A charism connects the inner and the outer worlds of people and their communities, offering new reasons for living and hoping. Perhaps the image of the Mobius strip might illustrate this. Those of you who study maths will recognize this. Unlike a normal loop of paper, which has an inside and an outside, the Mobius strip has a twist, so that the inside eventually becomes the outside, and vice versa. You can confirm that by drawing a continuous line along the strip, and without taking the pen off the paper, it will meet the original line. The outside and the inside are connected. Perhaps the charism is that twist, that turn that connects the inner and the outer world of the person and the community. A school with a charism is able to move inwards to depth, to values, to their founder's story, but also outwards in new ways to a changing world. It can take the older wisdom and draw it out and apply it to things both old and new in a new culture. That twist can meet the decline in charism energy with a new conviction, with a creativity and a trust in the energy of the Spirit. In school, rediscovering the charism means looking inward, certainly, to understand the spirit of the founder, but also outwards to ask, what would they be doing now? That turn both inwards and outwards takes an act of faith, that the Spirit is present still in the hearts of those in this school community and in the wider experience of culture. It means seeing deeper and not being satisfied with the observable and measurable outcomes of school life. It means living a more mystical mindset, where the elusive spirit is moving in individuals and in the unfolding story of the school. It means recognizing change as an opportunity to do more good, to reach deeper into the mystery of human experience through our educational relationships. It means trusting that the inner sense of vocation, calling people to give without charge and be ready to receive without charge is still present in our community. So, with that general reflection in mind, some questions you might want to reflect on. Where do you see signs of the elusive charism of your school? And when I say see, I mean what will I see physically in the school? The second question, who are the individuals that seem to embody that charism in the school, even if at times they may be a little disturbing? And finally, what aspects of school tend to suppress the charism dimension of school life? What tends to kind of just snuff it out, disregard it, and marginalise it? So 3 questions that we will invite you to take forward and see where those lead us in the rest of this conference. Thank you for listening.